Edit. A few people messaged me and asked me to update them. I was planning on deleting my account, but the fact that so many people took the time to give me advice and help me actually makes me feel better. I can't express how validating it feels to know that I made the right decision. I was contemplating going back to my ex, but now I realize he might not have been the nice guy everyone thinks he is. And truth be told, I was planning to stand up to myself to my ex's mom, but I lost my nerve because I started to think I was the AH, and that's why I made the post. I also just started feeling like a jerk. I guess if you have a bunch of people telling you something, you start to believe it a little. I am going to contact my ex's mom and have a one-on-one with her. And I'm going to tell my ex he needs to move all of his stuff out of the apartment. It's been about a month since we broke up, so he needs to get his stuff out. I will update if anything comes from that, but if I don't have anything else to say, I'll delete. Thank you all for your support. Planning to delete my account, but I need outside perspective and I can't go to friends or family. I, female 29, met my ex, male 32, in college. He knew all about my troubled relationship with my dad. Growing up, my dad struggled with addiction, cheated on my mom, and left us in debt. I only learned about his emotional and physical abuse towards my mom and siblings when I was much older. As the youngest, my memories are fuzzy, so family hid this from me, thinking it was best because they wanted me to have a good relationship with him. My dad wasn't actively involved in my life, and we didn't see each other often, even though my mom let him come by whenever he wanted. He would promise to take me out on weekends, but he'd never show up. When we did go out, he would yell at servers and threaten to kill them. He'd get race stranger and go 100 miles an hour with me in the car, and he'd always criticize my mom to me. I have so many stories, but two extreme ones are the times he tackled a boy my age for talking to me and started beating him. He left him bleeding on the floor and dragged me to the car, crying and shaking. The other is the time he took me out for my 15th birthday, like my actual birthday, and he abandoned me at the mall. It was about 3 cities over from where I lived, and I didn't know what to do, so I decided to try to take the bus home. I got lost and called my best friend. She and her older brother went to pick me up. That was the last time I saw him. The crazy thing was that at the end of each visit, he'd tell me to wait in the car for hours while he went to his friend's house. I just listened to music. It would be maybe 2-3 hours of us hanging out and another 4-5 hours of me sitting in a car. My mom thought we'd be hanging out all day, but obviously not. Despite my dad's behavior, we still spoke on the phone from time to time. I felt bad that he didn't have anyone in his life. He'd tell me that all his family hated him, and I thought that was really sad. Then one day, my mom decided to divorce him. He refused to give her the divorce until I stepped in. I saw that my mom was finally confident enough to make this step, and thought it was so cruel that he wouldn't do this for her. I basically told him that I thought it was unfair, and I would like him to please do it for me. He agreed, and I thought that our relationship would improve because he showed me that he really cared about me. Yet even after the divorce, he remained distant and had another child. He only reached out when he needed help with paperwork, writing emails, or other favors. Eventually, he crossed a line by asking me to forge my mom's signature, and I told him I couldn't help him. He called me a stupid witch like my mother. I told my family. He did a lot of reckless things, but this was the first time he ever called me a name. That's when they told me the truth about his abuse and drug use. I knew he cheated, and we went through financial issues, but I didn't realize the severity of the situation. I realized that all the times he made it seem like he was just disliked and going through a rough time, he actually was just trying to get sympathy from me. It wasn't that he was hated because he cheated, it was because of all the other crap he did. When I tried calling him, he texted me that I was ungrateful since I couldn't help with one little thing. Forge a document? Considering he did me a favor by giving my mom the divorce and I owed him. He blocked my number and his baby mama ended up texting me, telling me that all the times he wanted to go out with me, he just used me as an excuse to borrow his sister's car, and he actually just needed the car to drive to his dealer's house for drugs, or her house for intimacy. I confided in my ex about my dad's manipulative behavior and my decision to cut him out of my life when we started getting serious. My ex understood and supported me. I feel like there are 2 versions of my father. The one I saw was reckless and careless, which I chalked up to him being lonely and missing his family, and a darker version I never had to encounter. I realized I should have said something about all the things he did, but that I was just trying to make my dad and my family happy. He helped me get out of my people-pleasing ways. He helped me stick by my decisions and not feel guilty for saying no. He had a great relationship with my family, which made me feel even more confident in our relationship. I felt like I could rely on and depend on him. When we started planning our wedding, my ex asked about my dad, but I made it clear that I didn't want him there. He hadn't been part of my life for 7 years, and I wasn't ready to reconcile with him, especially not at my wedding. However, one day I came home to find my dad there, invited by my ex to bury the hatchet. I was shocked and devastated. My ex's actions just completely disregarded my feelings and boundaries. I couldn't believe he would do this, knowing how I felt about my dad, and without asking me first. My dad made a comment about how glad he was. I came to my senses and how excited he was to go to my wedding, making suggestions that my half-brother could be the ring bearer. I asked my dad to leave and warned him not to contact me again. My ex was furious since he believed I should forgive my dad and work on repairing our relationship, but I don't understand why I should forgive him when he was the one who cut ties with me. More importantly, I couldn't forgive someone who hadn't even apologized for their past actions. He believed that enough time had passed to allow me to work on forgiving him, but I argued that it's not fair that I have to put in the work. My number hasn't changed. My dad hasn't done anything to show me that he's changed. Sure, he gave my mom the divorce, but he never apologized for any of the crap he pulled, and was happy to go along with the facade of him being a guy who cheated and made a mistake, so he was vilified. I asked him how long he'd been in contact with my dad, and it turns out he'd been in contact with him for 6 months. I felt so disrespected and hurt by my ex's actions. I decided to call off the wedding and told him we needed to rebuild the trust and communication in our relationship before we got married. But my ex refused, saying that it was either we get married or break up. So I ended the engagement. He knew that I had issues with the lack of honesty and communication from so many people in my life, the decisions made on my behalf without regard for my feelings, and the years I spent trying to appease others. And yet, by trying to force my father back into my life, it was like he was deliberately trying to set off my triggers. I still don't understand why he reached out to him if he said he understood my reasons for not wanting my dad there. I still love him, so it hurts, but I thought I did the right thing. Now, it doesn't help that I'm getting so much hate from my ex's family, who are calling me names and blaming me for breaking his heart. They're calling me the AH for being so sensitive about this and overreacting. With the amount of flack I'm getting, I'm starting to feel like the AH. Did I do the right thing? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Answer his family. Sensitive and overreacting? About what? Not wanting an emotionally and physically hurtful drug addict as a part of my and my future children's lives? To finding out that my partner crossed boundaries that were in place before he entered my life? To find out that my partner is willing to break my trust and go behind my back to get what he wanted, while disregarding my feelings? How would any of you feel if your partner treated you with such disrespect? I asked them to postpone the wedding to rebuild trust. He refused. That's why we broke up. It was his idea. Suggest you know the facts in the future before telling someone that they're wrong. Comment 2. I don't know if you are going to therapy, but you might consider it because your decision to work with your fiancé on your communication after the stunt he pulled, instead of immediately ending your relationship, is concerning. You may love him, but if he truly loved you as he claims, he never would have done what he did. It was so malicious and cruel, and his reasons are nonsensical. You did the right thing, and you don't need to question yourself. Just block him and all his flying monkeys, not the idiot now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around to hear more of my story. So, I finally did it. I called my ex's mom. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I needed to clear the air. She was cold at first, said I was breaking her son's heart. I tried to explain my side, but she wasn't having any of it. It felt like talking to a brick wall. I ended the call feeling worse than before, but at least I stood my ground. The next day, I got a text from my ex. He wanted to talk. We met at a coffee shop, and it was awkward. He apologized for everything, said he was wrong to bring my dad into our lives without my consent. But then he dropped a surprise. He was moving across the country for a job. He wanted me to come with him, said it was a fresh start for us. I was torn. Part of me wanted to leave everything behind, but another part knew it wasn't right. I needed to stay and face my problems, not run from them. I told him no. It was one of the toughest decisions I've ever made, but it felt right. He was upset, but he understood. We said our goodbyes, and that was that. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But the drama didn't end there. The next day, I found out my dad had been hospitalized. He'd had an overdose. My emotions were all over the place. I felt guilty for not being there, but angry that he was still causing chaos in my life. I didn't go see him. I couldn't. It was too much. In the midst of all this, my ex came over to pick up his stuff. It was civil, but distant. He left his key, and that was the last piece of him gone from my life. It felt final, and I was okay with that. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm ready for it. I've learned a lot about myself these past few days, and I'm stronger for it. Thanks for reading. My boyfriend of 4 years tells me he's not ready for marriage. Then his ex shows up pregnant, but after the baby isn't his and he loses his job. I leave him and find someone who values my dreams. Sorry for the long post. I, 27-year-old female, have been dating my boyfriend Wes, 31-year-old male, for the last 4 years. We started dating in 2020 when both of us had just graduated from university. He was charming, kind, funny, and made me feel beautiful and safe. I knew that I had found the love of my life and best friend in him. We often talked about our future, and he asked me what I wanted from a relationship. I told him that I hoped to get married sometime after I turned 26, and then enjoy 1-2 years in my marriage before having kids. I also hoped to have or be expecting my first baby before 30. He shared his dreams with me, and we often had discussions about the future, the family, and the home we hoped to build together. Wes was able to find a good job that paid above average in our country, not the USA. He continued staying with his parents and was able to get himself his dream car and spend money on a lot of fun times with me and his friends. I struggled to get a job, and I was only able to find one late last year, which isn't a great job. Pays above average, but not great. But I was glad to have something to do. I moved out of my family home into a one-bedroom house that I love so much, and I am slowly trying to build my life and savings while working to build a business on the side. Wes recently started talking about moving out of his family home, but he wants to move into a big house with great furniture. This has been putting a lot of financial pressure on him because things are so expensive with our country's economic situation. Last week, we were having a chat, and it drifted into a conversation about our plans. Wes then told me, "I do not see myself getting married this year or next year. I don't know if I will be ready the following year either because I am not where I want to be in life." This came as a shock to me, and I reminded him of the conversation we had at the start of the relationship. He said he has never forgotten what I said. I stepped into the bathroom and cried a bit because I was really hurt and surprised by his words. This is a man who asked me about my plans and went on to date me. Combined, we make good money and would live a comfortable life. We can afford a few vacations while also being able to save some money, so I am doubting if this is about finances like he claims. I feel hurt and confused about the whole situation. Do I wait for him? What happens if he still feels the same way years from now? I don't want to press the issue further because it might seem like I am forcing him to do something he doesn't want to do. The thought of dating for another 2+ years without the joy of settling down and motherhood is really taking a toll on me. What do I do, Reddit? Update. When he asked about my plan, he told me that the timing was good. It was enough for us to build our lives and get to know each other better. During the 4 years, he would casually mention, so in so many years until you're 26. So I believed we were on the same page. I do love my boyfriend, but I hope to build a family only after marriage. There is no guarantee that his mind will change after 2 years, and that's where my concern is. This is a different conversation to have with him because it will most likely be seen as me trying to force him to change his mind, which is something I don't want. I want us to each be able to make our own decisions about life right now. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, just end it. If you want kids and marriage before 30 and he doesn't, you are no longer compatible. You will be having this same conversation in another 4 years, and there will be another obstacle and so on. Find someone who is at the same point as you are in life. This guy isn't there. Too many women lose valuable fertility years because they live the sunk cost fallacy, where they believe that they have invested too many years into a relationship to give up, when in fact by investing more, they are throwing more years down the toilet. Comment 2. When you had this conversation with him years ago about your plan, did he discuss his plan? Or did he just listen to your plan with no input? Have you flat out asked him what his plan is if he doesn't want to settle down in the next 2 years? What about in the next 5? What are his plans, because it seems vague from his side? If he is the love of your life, surely you can wait 2 more years for him to feel comfortable. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. A lot has happened since my last post. So after Wes dropped the bombshell about not being ready for marriage, things got even more complicated. His ex, let's call her Miss X, suddenly showed up out of nowhere. She was all tears and drama, claiming she was going through a tough time and needed Wes's support. I was skeptical, but Wes has always been the kind to help out a friend in need, so he met up with her. I trusted him, but it didn't sit right with me. Turns out Miss X was more than just in need of a shoulder to cry on. She was pregnant and claimed the baby was Wes's. I couldn't believe it. Wes swore up and down it wasn't possible, that they hadn't been together since before we started dating. But Miss X was persistent, and it caused a huge rift between us. Wes got a paternity test, and thank goodness it wasn't his. But the damage was done. The trust was shaken, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. While we were dealing with Miss X's drama, I got a promotion at work. It was a big deal for me, more responsibilities and a significant pay raise. I was over the moon, but Wes seemed distant. When I brought up the idea of using my new income to start planning for our future again, he shut down, said he was still not ready and didn't know when he would be. That's when I found out about the secret bank account. Wes had been stashing away money for a rainy day, but it was more than just a small fund. It was enough for a down payment on a house, maybe even a wedding. But he hadn't told me about it. When I confronted him, he said he was saving it for himself, for his own future, whatever that meant. I was hurt, confused, and angry. All this time, I thought we were building a life together, but it seemed like Wes was only looking out for himself. The trust we had was crumbling, and I didn't know if it could be repaired. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, Wes lost his job. The company he worked for went under, and just like that, his income was gone. He was devastated, and I tried to be supportive, but it was hard. The man who didn't want to commit to our future together was now relying on me to help him through this tough time. I helped him out for a few weeks, but it was taking a toll on me. I was working extra hours to cover both our expenses, and the stress was unbearable. Wes was looking for a job, but nothing was coming up. I started to resent him, not just for the financial strain, but for all the emotional turmoil he'd put me through. Finally, I had enough. I sat Wes down and told him I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't wait for him to be ready for a future that seemed like it would never come. I couldn't be with someone who kept secrets and didn't consider me a partner in his plans. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I ended things with Wes. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm still picking up the pieces of my life. I'm focusing on my job, my promotion, and my own future. It's not easy, but I know it's the right thing for me. I'm looking forward to finding someone who shares my dreams and is ready to build a life together, without secrets and without hesitation. Thanks for reading. My mother's passive-aggressive antics pushed me away at 15, but when she needed me after an accident, I showed up and taught her a lesson in gratitude by being the bigger person and supporting her move while vowing to never repeat her mistakes with my own kids. Hi, Mom. So nice to see you've managed to navigate your phone beyond sending me images with flowers and text with profound messages that are so clearly passive-aggressive, I've stopped responding to them. Since you've decided to clear the air, let me do the same. You seem to have trouble answering some of the questions the Redditors have asked over and over again. So let me help out where I can. Where shall I start? How about the beginning of the story as far as this thread is concerned? A one I left home at 15 because I spent the 3 years prior with a mentally unwell, but not actively working on her mental health in any way. Mother who couldn't handle me going through puberty and pulling away from her, who was so strict I was not allowed to see friends outside of church, and even then, she'd always prefer we would be at our house to play, which my friends usually didn't like. It came to a head when she physically attacked me, lied to anyone who asked what happened to me, and basically said it was my fault. I moved in with a stranger from the internet I had never met before. He picked me up because that felt more peaceful than living with her. Yes, that was dumb, and I'm lucky to be alive to write this. No matter how many times I have tried to explain how I feel you've dismissed or downplayed it, lots of "I'm sorry that's how you feel," etc. We are not as well off as she seems to think, although we are financially stable, which I am grateful for. As my mother is well aware, I have always kept the door open for our relationship to be repaired. Always made it clear I love her, and understand she did what she thought was best at the time, even if I didn't agree. I was told I will understand when I have kids and will probably be the same. Well, I have kids now, Mom. I know they're young, but I can't fathom treating them how you treated me. I told you we couldn't go on that trip because we would have been freshly postpartum. I even offered to do it later in the year. You didn't want to. Guess what? Everyone else here is basically spot on with everything they said, especially about the RV thing sounding like a complete nightmare. But I was even willing to do that to try to repair our relationship, but you just couldn't wait another few months, could you? You had to be when you wanted it. Now you're here for sympathy, arguing with everyone, and still think you're right. I truly don't know where this leaves us. I love you, but I have my own family to think about. I can't keep letting you let me and the kids down. I'll message you soon about all this. Please don't try to call. I will not answer. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I had commented numerous times with your mother's post. It is truly like talking to a wall. I personally would have gone no contact by now if I was in that situation. Comment 2. Even if this is fake, I'm sure it felt very cathartic. Does she send you memes like "a mother's love is forever" and shoot like that? I am sorry your mom sucks. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. Here's what's been going down. So after that whole fiasco with Mom trying to get sympathy online, things just spiraled. I thought maybe she'd take a hint, but nope. She showed up at my house unannounced. Just rocked up like it was any other Tuesday. I was in the middle of feeding the baby, and there she was, standing at the door with that look. You know, the one that says, "I'm here to fix everything." But it's really just about her. I let her in because, well, she's my mom. But I was on edge, the kids were confused, and my partner was not happy. We sat down, and she started with the apologies, but they felt empty. She was saying sorry, but it was more like she was sorry I felt the way I did, not that she did anything wrong. Then she dropped the bomb. She's selling the house, the one I grew up in. Says it's too much for her to handle alone. I get it, but she's moving across the country to live with my aunt. That means she's not just a drive away anymore. It's like she's cutting ties without saying it. I felt betrayed, like she was abandoning me all over again. But here's where I messed up. I lost it. I told her she was selfish, that she never really listened or cared. I said things I can't take back. She left in tears, and I felt like the worst person alive. My partner tried to calm me down, but I was just so full of anger and hurt. The next day, I found out from my aunt that Mom had been planning this move for months. She'd been talking about it like it was a done deal, but she never mentioned it to me. It was like I didn't matter in her decision-making. I felt so left out, like I wasn't even part of the family. I needed to clear my head, so I took the kids to the park. While we were there, my phone kept buzzing. It was my mom calling over and over. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was still too raw from our fight. But then my partner called. Mom had been in an accident. She was okay, but shaken up. It was like a wake-up call. I realized that no matter how much she hurt me, I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. I went to see her at the hospital. We didn't talk about the move or the fight. We just sat there. And for the first time in a long time, it was peaceful. I held her hand and she squeezed it back. It wasn't a fix, but it was a start. When I got home, I talked to my partner about everything. We decided that we'd support her move. It's her life, and she has the right to live it how she wants. I can't keep holding on to the past if I want to move forward. So, that's where we're at. Mom's moving, and I'm trying to be okay with it. It's not easy, but I'm working on it. I'm focusing on my family, my kids, and trying to be the parent I never had. It's a work in progress, but aren't we all? Thanks for reading. I'll keep you posted on how things go. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.